And good morning. It's 7:04 on this Monday, April 29th. It's time for Coleman and Company. Our guest host today, Judge Barry Tatum.
Good morning, MJ, and welcome back. Looking at you through the window in there, you're tanned, you're rested, and you're ready, I guess is what we'd say. But thanks to everybody for tuning in on this beautiful Monday morning, April 29th. And I want to tell you something. Every time I come out here to guest host, people say, well, why do they get you to guest host? It's because I bring MJ coffee. And this morning I was going through the drive-thru to get her coffee. And when I get in, she's got a particular order. And when I came through there to pay, the lady at the window said, well, the car in front of you took care of your coffee. So if they're listening, or if you know anybody that's gone through the Starbucks parking lot or drive-thru this morning, who paid it forward or complimented the coffee, that's MJ says thank you, and I say thank you, and appreciate that. But to start off the week, every week, we always have someone from Absolute Kubota, located at 1506 West Main Street here in Lebanon. And this morning we got, I don't know if you're the top man on the pyramid, but you're up there close to it, Matt Bryson.
Good morning, Mr. Tatum.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing good.
Well, it's I drive by y'all's place several times a week, and look over there, and the lot is full of those beautiful orange tractors and track loaders, and or not track loaders, mini excavators and hay balers and mowers, and it just looks like things are going great down there at Absolute Kubota.
Well, we definitely, I had a guy text me last week, and he said, Matt, you've got a lot of inventory down there. And so, we moved there in October of 2020, and inventory, the supply chain was in pretty bad shape.
That was during the pandemic.
It was during the pandemic, and so I have some pictures of us being down there those first few months, and we kept spreading product out further and further to make it fill up a lot more space. And now, as the supply chain has gotten better, right, we have certainly seen the product inventory pick up a little bit. We still got some gaps. Our skid loaders are still, we have some of those products that are still on wait lists, believe it or not. But for the most part, we're able to fulfill those sales that are coming through, and we're still seeing a lot of volume.
Well, this time of year, grass is growing. People are doing landscaping work. If you go by any sort of garden center, there's folks getting all kinds of plants to plant and to tend to their yards, tend to their pastures, and I've got a good stand of fescue coming up that's going to be cut later on. But what's the busy thing right now for y'all?
Absolutely, lawnmowers are probably the busiest, and some of our mid-range tractors. Those 20 to 30 horsepower tractors. Construction equipment has stayed really steady. Mm-hmm. But if I had to, put my finger on one thing in the time of year that we're in, obviously our zero-turn mowers are probably the most sought-after product that we have currently. We're getting ready to enter into hay season. We're probably here towards the end of the month. We'll start seeing a lot of activity in that market. We're already starting to see customers come in and buying blades for their mowers and things of that nature. So, but no, the zero-turn mowers are a really busy product line for us right now. Currently, Kubota's running 0% for 60 months on a lot of those mowers. There is a $300 processing fee to take that 0% financing. So it's just if you're in the market for that type of product, Kubota's got a really good unit there.
And you don't just sell Kubotas as far as mowers go. You also have Hustlers and Exmarks, I believe.
We do. We tend to see on the Exmark side, a lot of our landscape contractors tend to, navigate more towards that product. Exmark is I think it's still 2-to-1 purchase. The purchase is 2-to-1 over any other brand for the commercial contractor, and a lot of it has to do with the reason why we see so many of them around here. One, it's a great product, but two, it cuts fescue really well, and predominantly that's what most of these lawns are made up of here in this market.
But you also have Red Max trimmers and blowers, power tools. for doing landscaping work as well as landscaping supplies.
We do. We don't talk about our landscape supply products on here a lot, but if you're in the market for, you need to either get your lawn going in the right direction, or maybe you need to establish a new lawn. We have the seeds and fertilizers to do that, and then the Red Max product obviously is our handheld product. It's a really good commercial grade handheld trimmers, blowers, hedge trimmers, things of that nature that we sell. And we've actually been selling those since we started. We've been in business. This will be our 10th year.
All right. Well, in 30 seconds here or less, if you could just tell people where you are, what's the best way to get in touch with you, and who to see.
Yes, sir. So we're at 1506 West Main. Our phone number there is 615-449-6171. You can call us, and you can also text us to that number, and we have people that monitor that all day long. And then you can check us out on the World Wide Web at absolutekubota.com.
All right. Matt Bryson, thank you so much for Absolute Kubota, and going to have a beautiful day here. Hope you get some sales.
Thanks, sir.
All right. With that, it's 10 minutes after 7 o'clock on this Monday morning, and this is probably going to be one of the last wrap-up sessions for the General Assembly in Davidson County, but every other Monday during the legislative session, Coleman has one of our 2 state representatives, and it's Clark Boyd's turn this morning. Good morning, Clark.
Hey, good morning, Judge.
It's good to see you, and if I'm not going to blow your cover here a little bit, you don't look like you're going to a legislative session today from your dress.
No, I'm heading to the gym after this.
About the gym, Magistrate Kennedy and Judge Jimmy Lee both go to the gym pretty regularly. And they've had to make emergency room visits here within the last year or 6 months or so. And Judge Hagan and I avoid a gym, and we haven't been to the emergency room.
There's some correlation there, I'm sure. The older I get, I will hurt myself. And right now, I've been nursing a rotator cuff injury for about a year now.
Gym.
It really is.
Well, in all seriousness, it's good to see you here with a smile on your face, and after intense, I guess you would say, in some respects, legislative session. A lot of news down there about gun safety, gun violence. I know there are bigger issues about the franchise excise tax and potential lawsuits, and also the plan about revamping the education system. So before we get into the highlights of it, I want to take a personal minute here to thank you for something. Attorneys get appointed to cases. We have cases where the public defenders have conflicts and they can't represent an individual. We also have cases, what I deal with specifically, are where parents, DCS has stepped in and impacted their custodial rights to their children in some way. They're entitled to have appointed attorneys. And issue came up about the funding, and I reached out to you, Senator Pody, and we met separately. I've invited a couple of 2 or 3 attorneys who take these kinds of appointments that came along. And I don't know what was what caught your attention, but what I like to say is the last time I was practicing law back in 1998, the compensation rate was $50 an hour. And it had still been $50 an hour to this day. But after our meeting, you introduced an appropriations request or a budget amendment, or I don't know what the proper term is, and you got a raise of $10 per hour on that. And I want to thank you for taking an interest. Thank you for meeting with us and leading the charge down there. So,
well, I'm glad to do it, and I appreciate you bringing that to my attention. That was something that was brought up in budget hearings by the administrative office of the courts. They were asking for a lot more than that, and I don't know if everybody really grasped the magnitude of what was going on there. Because anytime you're saying, "Hey, our lawyers aren't paid enough," you don't really get it's hard to find a sympathetic audience to that. But I remember them talking about that, and then coming to breakfast with you that morning. You said, no, this is a real issue.
Yeah.
You said, these attorneys can make a lot more money doing something else, and these people need to be represented. They have a right to be represented, and we're fast approaching a point where attorneys are no longer going to take these cases. and these people were going to be. I guess you could force someone to take the case, but so I went back and I said, are we doing something? Because this is normally something that would be done by the administration. The executive branch would make a proposal, and nobody was doing anything. And so I just said, I've been down there long enough to know when you're asking for too much and it's just not going to be approved. So this was a $8 million a year recurring appropriation I was requesting that equated to $10 an hour. And I put it in, and Senator Pody, signed on as carried it in the Senate, and it got approved. And so it was it's a success story. So I'm happy about that.
Well, it means a lot because you can force somebody to do something you don't know. You look for people that have a passion and a knowledge and a level of expertise. That's what we have with the attorneys who handle those kind of cases. They're grateful, and but as I told you, it's a start. There are some other issues to work on with that, but I wanted to take a moment to thank you face to face and also publicly about your effort on that, and means a lot. Sorry to take up so much of the time, but MJ's in there. She's rested and ready back from her vacation, and she's chomping at the bit to get that traffic report and a word from our sponsors.
Thanks, Judge. Let's see what's happening on the roadways. Thanks, Absolute Kubota. Premium brands require premium parts and service. Contact Absolute Kubota's Elite Certified Service Department to schedule an appointment. 449-6171. Now with traffic, here's Chuck.
Good morning. A couple of accidents getting some attention out here. It's pretty crowded now on 24 westbound up through the Antioch area. You got all that heavy traffic flow coming in right on schedule out of Murfreesboro, Rutherford County, towards Nashville on 24 westbound. Again, it's also starting to get crowded. Vietnam Vets westbound coming past Conference Drive, getting on that ramp there to 65 south, making your way down through Madison. That still looks pretty decent at the moment. Watch for radar I-40 out in Dixon County. Prince's Hot Chicken now has new items on a new menu, and it's awesome. Check it out today, princeshotchicken.com. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
Since 1982, Exmark has been dedicated to building the world's finest mowers. These machines provide you with a quality of cut that seems impossible, dependability you can measure in lifetimes, and an operator experience like none other. Because Exmark believes if something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. Visit your local dealer to discover a one-of-a-kind ownership experience and see the difference for yourself.
Exmark, done right, made for this. Absolute Kubota, 1506 West Main, Lebanon.
Welcome back to Coleman & Company. Barry Tatum sitting in for Coleman, who's on special assignment, as we like to say. And I don't know if it has anything to do with he and Helen's anniversary that they celebrated late last week. But happy anniversary to both Coleman and Helen. I believe I heard 61 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That is.
I don't know that anybody could put up with me for 61 years. And for that matter, can you, MJ, could you put up with Coleman for another 61 years? Get your head out of your hand. All right. We were here with Representative Clark Boyd, representative for the 46th.
That's right.
House District here in Wilson County, which essentially is the eastern portion of Wilson County and most of Lebanon, I believe. And talking about the legislative session that just wrapped up this past Friday. And there are a few topics that you did want to touch on about things that were progressive or progress made in Nashville.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And one of the things I'll go ahead and speak to, I spoke to about it last week as well, regarding the teachers carrying guns. And I didn't know much about this bill. I learned about it on Thursday. I mean, I knew it was out there. So on Thursday, before I was on Coleman Walker show last time, I saw it, and my reaction was what a lot of people's were. I was like, wow, is somebody really proposing that? And then I heard the sponsor give an explanation on the radio, so I invited him on here to talk last time I was on here. But I've learned quite a bit more about it, and I just wanted to shed a little bit of light that I don't think that the media is actually explaining very well. A law was passed by the General Assembly in 2016. It was before I was in there, that allowed certain counties in the state of Tennessee to allow their teachers to go armed. So this is current state law. You have to be a distressed county. Now to clarify what that means, all distressed counties are rural, but not all rural counties are distressed. And so you could have a couple of counties that are completely identical as far as mainly agriculture land, no industry. Both of the county governments are very Spartan, don't have a lot of revenue to work with, but one of them has a higher poverty level or has a lower median income household, and the federal government would designate them as distressed. The next one could neighbor an urban county, and all the people that live there go to that county and work, have higher paying jobs, and they're not distressed. So a lot of counties are actually they're asking, why can't we be put on the distress list? And it's because you don't have enough poverty there. And so but we look at them a lot the same, but the federal government designates some of them as distressed. Well, the distressed counties could arm their teachers. The other rural counties could not. And so we started seeing problems
and
where...
It's been on the books since 2016.
It's been on the books since 2016. We started seeing cases where some of the rural counties could not... Even with the money that we gave them last year, they just could not get school resource officers hired. And if you've got, I don't know for sure, if you have 7 deputies but 5 or 6 schools, you're just not going to have a school resource officer program. So they were considering trying to arm their teachers. They didn't have the authority to do it by statute, so they were considering getting them sworn in as reserve deputies. If you do that, you have to go through a pretty robust psychological evaluation, and some of the teachers weren't passing that, and they're saying, well, why does the neighboring county not have to do it, but we do? And recognizing that some of these schools want armed, a senator and a rep said, why don't we pass a bill that raises these standards? So now you have to have a psychological evaluation. We're more specific about the level of training that you have to have. You have to go through your law enforcement, chief law enforcement officer, your superintendent, your principal. Let's raise the standards, raise the bar, but make it permissive. So if you're across the state,
statewide,
that's really what the bill did, and I think that's why you saw such overwhelming support. And I will say this, and I won't name any names. There were a few Democrats that privately supported it. They said, with this being permissive, with there being a lot of schools without school resource officers, I like this. They said, I can't vote. They said I won't be able to vote for you because their base wouldn't allow them. And they actually were planning to take a walk, just go to the bathroom during the vote. But then they did that, and another member didn't realize what they were doing and went and voted no for them. And so they ended up, because they came later and apologized to the sponsor.
You can do that.
You're not supposed to, but it happens sometimes. And so I was told that member got scolded pretty badly because the guy said, I actually wanted to show up on the board as a white light. And so I know that on the outside looking in, every person I talk to says, Clark, I think that's a bad idea. Why should you make a teacher carry a gun? I don't want my kids in Wilson County. And I have to say, guys, nobody's required to carry a gun. And then I say, I don't think Wilson County or Lebanon Special would do this. There's not a need. I mean, I suppose they could, but I know they're not going to, because we were probably the first county in the state to have a school resource officer in every school, but there are still a lot of schools out there that aren't protected right now. And so this could be a valuable tool to get them protected.
So let me make sure I got this straight. In spite of the funding increase last year, not every school in Tennessee, public school in Tennessee, has a school resource officer.
That is right. Yeah,
And in order to make this up, essentially, you broaden the scope of a law that had been on the books since 2016 and made the standards, requisite standards, tougher or more accountable, if you will, in order for schools to exercise this. But again, it's permissive.
That's right,
not mandatory. And if I also saw some news clip, or maybe it was in yours or Representative Lynn or Senator Pody's recap, it's not just a one-person decision. A teacher can't decide one day, I'm going to take my gun to school. There's multiple layers of approval for this to go through, besides the psychological assessment. The administration, local sheriff, I believe, or law enforcement, and maybe some other.
That's right, yeah. This is really, in my opinion, it is a tool to bridge that gap between those schools that are unprotected and school resource officers. I think it's only going to be used in some of those rural counties that are not distressed but can't get it. And I've had people come to me and say, "Well, you shouldn't. I don't want anything done." And I say, "Okay, in this hand, I have teachers that are armed and they don't have psychological evaluations. They've not been fingerprinted by the TBI. In this one, I have teachers that have to get superintendent, principal, law enforcement, background check, psychological evaluation, 40 hours, and I go through the whole thing and I say, which one do you want? And they, well, I don't like either. Well, no, there's no easy button when you're voting. Which one do you want? Which one? And they say, well, I suppose I would take this one. I would say, congratulations, you just supported the same bill that I voted on. And so I think that if the truth were out there, I think about, I can't imagine anybody that would be against this, really. I mean, we didn't have a choice. This was the better of the two options.
Shifting gears a little bit, year started off, and it's been talked about, batted around for a while, about the administration, Governor Lee's proposal to revamp I don't know if it's revamp the public education system with the charter schools proposal. That died.
Well, no, not charter schools. Charter schools are already there.
Vouchers.
They're public schools, yeah. And I always like to clarify that because I think people get confused the two. Charter schools are public schools in Tennessee, just like a magnet school or anything else. The vouchers is what was being discussed, and it never made it to a committee that I got to vote on, and I was. Both sides were very opinionated about it. I'll tell people it's like walking into a room and you got two brothers and they're fighting, and and you're like, stop, but wait a minute, and you're trying to say, is there not something that we could do that would make both sides happy? And
right.
And of course neither, one side is okay with that, the other isn't. But it's been an ongoing debate. The bill kept changing, and so. And I'll just tell you, I have always philosophically been for anything that gives parents more choice in where their kids go to school. But immediately when the governor came out with his version, it was so aggressive with no income limits. I mean, it would have been bad for, I think it could have negatively impacted public schools. It would have created massive inflation in the private school market, because if all of a sudden everybody in the state had a voucher,
cash,
you show up and your voucher's no different than everybody else. And I didn't think that people already going to private schools should get the voucher. And so then I kind of said I became a no, even though I never voted on it. That they were kind of keeping tabs of where everybody was at. Then the House came out with a version that scaled it down, peel back a lot of the testing requirements that my public school teachers have been saying. You need to back off this a little bit. The testing is just getting out of control. It did that. It brought was going to bring the teachers in and put them on the state's group health insurance plan, which would cost teachers a lot less. So then I was like, okay, well, now you've got my attention. I think I could get on board with this if it ever makes it to my committee. And then it took another turn that where they were going to make it open enrollment, where you could go to whatever public school you wanted to go to, which Wilson County already does that. I mean, if there's room in Watertown and you live in Lebanon, you can go there as long as you can get there. This one, the senator that was carrying the bill made it so that you could go from one county to another. And at that point, I had a problem with it, because that would have required Wilson County taxpayers potentially to have to build new schools for Davidson County kids. And so I said, nah, I couldn't be for something like that. So then I turned into a no again. And that's kind of where, and this was, I never voted on this. This was just when I was talking to people where I philosophically was. And then the bill, I think they figured out there were enough people like me that even though we weren't completely closed off to the idea, we could not vote on the bill in its current form. And so they stopped it, and it never made it anywhere.
The administration's interest in this, and there was a big push, and has been for a couple of years. Is this coming from some out-of-state interest group, think tank? What's the genesis for it? I mean, where is the? I mean, it's a tough situation. You want each child to have the opportunity to a superior education, regardless of where they live. And we've looked at increasing teacher salaries, making more accommodations for schools and so forth. We're trying to improve the situation that we have. But it seems like this one just came out of the blue, and perhaps there's some outside interest groups that have come in and lobbied the administration.
Well, the governor genuinely loves this idea. He mentored a young man years ago that got some private funding to go to a different school. He was in a inner city school that wasn't doing well, and he went to a private school, and Bill Lee, I think, mentored him, and it just became a passion. He just said, this is something I want to do one day. And anytime you have a governor that gets behind that, you have these free market think tank organizations that are behind it just because they believe in free market, and they want to put that into the right. education market. Then you have these groups that are interested in I guess vouchers, and I don't know where they come from. I haven't had a lot of interaction with them because I don't serve on education, but there are those groups. But I think that really at the genesis of it's the urban cities, because anytime you do something, whether it only affects rural schools, if it has statewide application, you have to kind of say this really isn't for us. It's really engineered more for these kids, and so I think really what they're trying to do is some of these big cities like Memphis and Nashville, where the schools are just having problems, right. and because we don't have issues in Wilson County. I mean, the collar counties, the Rutherford, Wilson, Williamson, Sumter, we have great schools. I mean, people come here because of the schools. They want to live here because of that. So it was never engineered for schools like Wilson County schools. It's more trying to address some of the needs in the big cities. And I can tell you, those parents are asking for things like this. I have had groups come to me, both on charter schools and on this, and they're just parents of inner city children, and they're like, we really need help. I mean, do something.
We live in Davidson County, but we want a Wilson County education.
Yeah, that's what they want. They would, if they had the money or the resources, they would move to Wilson or Williamson County, and they just want the same type of education that we have here, there. So whether it be allow them to go to a different public school, allow them to go to a charter school or the ESA, that's what they're pushing, and I think that's really what they're trying to address.
Well, Clark, I noticed MJ's got her headphones on. We may be going a little bit long, but you've got an election coming up later on this year, so I guess you'll be campaigning a little bit.
That's right.
All right.
Thank you, Judge.
Take care of yourself at the gym. Don't get hurt.
Thank you.
All righty. With that, we'll go to a word from our sponsors and a traffic report.
Thanks, Judge. Let's see what's happening on the roadways. Thanks to our friends at Bates Ford and the Works Vehicle Checkup. They'll make sure your vehicle is ready for any road. $59.95 up to 5 quarts of oil, tax and disposal, tire rotation, and safety check. 1780 Franklin Road. Now at traffic, here's Chuck.
Good morning. It's loading up pretty good with a lot of volume now. Right on schedule coming out of Murfreesboro, Rutherford County, 24 going westbound as you work your way up through Antioch. Again, just watch for some radar out there in Rutherford County. Pretty heavy now on that ramp as you come off Vietnam Vets onto 65 going south. All that heavy traffic making its way down through Madison as traffic really increases. 24 east at the Jolton exit. You got all that heavy traffic behind it coming in from Clarksville. Prince's Hot Chicken now has new items on a new menu you can order online today. It's easy. Log on to princeshotchicken.com. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
Are you facing a challenging time that you need help navigating? Well, look no further than your local law firm of Kane & Crowell. At the offices of Kane & Crowell, we understand the complexities that come with family law matters. Whether you're going through a divorce, working through child custody or support matters, or needing a will or trust drafted to protect your family assets for future generations. Kane & Crowell, 615-784-4800. Your local leaders in family law matters.
The Farm Bureau Expo Center would like you to consider us for your next corporate outing. Our 79,000 square feet of adaptable event space offers unparalleled versatility right here in Wilson County. Trainings, luncheons, and meetings are just a few of the many types of events that we can accommodate throughout the week. For booking details, as well as upcoming events, visit farmbureauexpo.com or find us on Facebook at Farm Bureau Expo. We look forward to seeing you soon at the Farm Bureau Expo.
Heading into your Monday with some partly sunny skies, a slight chance of showers and storms by this afternoon. That high of 84, breezy south winds up to 25 miles per hour. For tonight, a 70% chance of showers and storms, otherwise mostly cloudy, low down to 62. This weather forecast is brought to you by Walker Auction and Realty, professional auction and real estate services. Get top dollar for your home, land, or personal property. Log on to MikeWalkerAuctions.com. They know auctions. That's a look at your forecast. I'm Stormy Clausen. Johnson.
Welcome back to Coleman and Company for the second half of this beautiful Monday morning. And our sponsor for the second half is going to be the Farm Bureau Expo Center with Gail Hellam, Director of Marketing and Events. Good morning.
Good morning.
How's the world treating you?
Things have been busy, very busy. Of course, that's a standard answer for me, but it's all true.
Well, Coleman gives an update every now and then. I don't know where he's going or where he's coming back from, but he always points out about the crowds or cars that he sees parked out there at the expo center.
Yeah, I think he's routinely checking to see if I'm doing my job.
Well, I think anybody that drives by, or certainly anybody who has the opportunity to go in that facility, knows that you're working hard and your staff are working hard every day.
That's correct.
What's happening out at the Expo Center as far as events that are coming up or anything that's happened recently?
We're wrapping up the dance season for the most part, and I love having them. It's a great show, bring lots of kids in, lots of exposure for the Expo. But looking forward to moving into maybe a different tempo. We have a new show that is going to be, this coming week, Cumberland, where their rain date. So if it rains, they're going to be bringing the graduation into the expo, which is always a major undertaking, but it's very doable, and we have a plan, so we're not worried about that. So if that becomes the case, we will shift gears and move them in on Friday, or Thursday, actually. And then next week, we have a brand new show coming out of Gallatin that I recruited. And it's a gift boutique show, but it's all handmade stuff. So it's supporting the greater local area. When I say greater local, just outside of Wilson County, and some in Wilson County. Excited to bring her in. She's got a good reputation with shows. It's a boutique bazaar. So it's going to definitely be worth checking out. And she has definitely put the work into the advertising. So...
Yeah, you said you brought that in here. Has she been doing a bazaar?
She has, but elsewhere.
Okay, so
elsewhere. So
recruited that. She liked your facility. Y'all
yes.
made the arrangement.
Yes,
very good.
So she does one up in Gallatin in the fall too. I can't really accommodate that based on what I already have scheduled on a routine basis, but
you could if you had the space.
I could if I had the space. That's right. That's right. So we're very excited about that. And then I was telling Coleman a couple weeks ago, I was able to bring in a Pentecostal group in July that's going to bring 5,000 people.
Whoa.
Yes, for 4 days.
I was about to say, for how long?
For 4 days.
Okay.
So busy working, getting all the moving parts and pieces in place for that, security as far as traffic, just general security for the grounds. Not that we expect any problems, but
I was about to say,
large
with
crowd.
that group, it's not going to be a rowdy crowd.
No, but it is a large crowd, and it does impact. And the Ag Grounds is going to have the Truck Nationals at the same time. So we will be maxing out every hotel in Wilson County. And I've had to reach out to my colleagues in just off of 840 in Murfreesboro to utilize some of their hotels to be able to have room for everybody.
If you look down the road, say 5 years, and you had a magic wand and an unlimited resources, what would you like to see the Expo Center be?
I'd love to see the Expo Center at least tripled in size.
Okay.
That would be amazing.
Tripled in size.
That would be just amazing.
And then what about accommodations?
Hotels would be good too.
Okay.
That's right. Hotels. I mean, I would love at some point for that infrastructure around the Expo to be built out. It takes time. We have to prove ourselves in terms of what we bring to the table. But I think collectively, I'm working with the Economic Development Committee, the department for the county, also working with tourism. So I think, and then Lebanon and Mount Juliet. So trying to bring everybody in so that we can work together towards that end.
All right. Well, Gail, thank you so much for being out here this morning and also for sponsoring Coleman every Monday morning. And what's the best way to get in touch with you? If somebody had a small event, large event, looking for
It's
options?
easy. Call 615-450-3049. We'd love to talk to you.
All righty. Gail Hellam with the Farm Bureau Expo Center, Director of Marketing and Events. Thank you, and I hope you have a great week.
You too.
All righty. With that, it's about 21 minutes before 8 o'clock, and when Coleman calls me saying I'm going to be on special assignment, he typically has a roster of guests already lined up, certainly has the sponsorships lined up. But this time he said, I've got, I need spaces for the second half on Monday. And so I start thinking about who would be somebody good, and somebody who's been out here before, but it's been a long time.
Yes.
And but we've invited her back. She's transitioned through a couple of jobs now, but is currently the Assistant Commissioner for the Division of Children and Young Adults for the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. How do you put that title on a card, Beth Goodner?
It's a mouthful.
It is. I'm glad you wrote it down.
I know. It's good to be back. I came out and visited with Coleman 2 or 3 different times, and it was always in October to promote mental health screening, depression screening month in October.
And what were you doing then?
I was working at McFarland Specialty Campus, and most people know that history, but I started working there in 1993 and worked until around 2011 and had a variety of roles, starting with marketing and then on into clinical roles, and did social work with our patients and utilization review with insurance companies and different things. So we promoted Depression Screening Month in October, and so I would come on to Coleman's show and really promote that and promote just learning and getting to know education around mental illness. So still doing it.
So it's I'm not too good with math, but it's been over 10 years since you've been out here.
I know.
Okay.
It's good to be back.
Well, what I wanted to get you out here for, tell us a little bit about you before we get into the substance of it. Local young lady, married Rod Goodner.
Yes.
Parent, grandparents, First United Methodist Church.
Yes.
What else are the highlights?
Well, it is so good, to do this program and be in Lebanon. I grew up here, went to Lebanon High School, graduated from LHS, Blue Devil.
How about that?
And Rod went to Castle Heights, so we were always in different high schools. But went on to MTSU and obtained my bachelor's in social work, and went to work with Department of Human Services with Joanne Smith.
Right, another local lady.
Yes, and I've been so fortunate to just have such great mentors, and I still do. Joanne was one of my first. Yeah. And did foster care work, casework, and investigations for abuse. Learned a lot. Judge Barry was the judge that I went before many times. Learned a lot from him in that time. And then, of course, obviously, that job, I was working with children and families. And I went on for the next 4 years to work with children and families in different settings. I worked at Track Group Home in Gallatin. That was a co-ed group home with teens. And then came back and worked at the Youth Emergency Shelter here in Lebanon.
With Kent Brummett, I guess.
Well, it was Amy Bewley before that.
Wow. We are going back a
Yes. And then also worked for Centerstone in their Home Ties program, and that was an in-home program for children at risk of going into state custody.
Right.
And so between my work with DCS, my work with the Home Ties program, I really learned the value of working with children and their families in the home setting. You can go in a home and I was lucky enough that, I gained rapport with these families. And when you're invited to sit down at the kitchen table or you're invited to sit down on the couch in the den, you can get to know families and there's things that you can just pick up on and gather from when you're in the home with them. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And so that was some of my early experience with children and youth. But back to just, back to being from Lebanon, while I was at McFarland, so Amy Bewley was my director at the youth shelter,
right.
And Amy went to work for McFarland, and she recruited me to come with her. I never intended to work in psychiatry, and as it happens, here we go, 30 years later. But Amy was another one of my mentors, and she encouraged me to go back to school. And I was so concerned about how am I going to pay for school and how am I going to work, and it all worked out. So I received my master's in social work, and then while I was at McFarland, had some people really urging me to start the licensure process with my social work degree. And that's a pretty lengthy process because you've got to go through service hours and internships and things like that. And obtained that licensure, and then went on to, while I was still at McFarland, went on to run a private practice here in Lebanon for a couple of years.
And then I guess most recently before this position, you were CEO at Trust Point Hospital in Murfreesboro.
Yes. So I left McFarland and was in a position at a program in Gallatin for a short time, and one of my coworkers called me and said, I think you need to come check out this facility. So I went to Murfreesboro, and I was in different operational roles for the first 5 years, and it was a growing program. So when I first went, our average daily census was around 50, and when I left, our average daily census was 170 to 175.
So it grew a lot.
We grew a lot. I was CEO for the last 5 years. And when I took over that position, we were midpoint in a massive 50% expansion.
Yeah. Wow.
So we went from basically 100-bed capacity to 270.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're awfully humble about this, but those success speaks for itself, and I'm listening. There aren't any failures or setbacks. It doesn't say.
I've learned some lessons. As one of my bosses says, I've skint my knees a few times.
Well, it takes that. Those are the ones that stick with me. But it's looks like MJ's got her headphones on. We've got about 15 minutes before we finish up the program, so we'll get a word from our sponsors and a traffic report.
Thanks, Judge. Let's see what's happening on the roadways. Thanks to Absolute Kubota. Premium brands require premium parts and service. Contact Absolute Kubota's Elite Certified Service Department to schedule an appointment. 449-6171. Now at traffic, here's Chuck.
Good morning. It's loading up pretty good with a lot of volume now. Right on schedule coming out of Murfreesboro, Rutherford County, 24 going westbound as you work your way up through Antioch. Again, and just watch for some radar out there in Rutherford County. Pretty heavy now on that ramp as you come off Vietnam Vets onto 65 going south. All that heavy traffic making its way down through Madison as traffic really increases. 24 east at the Jolton exit. You got all that heavy traffic behind it coming in from Clarksville. Prince's Hot Chicken now has new items on a new menu you can order online today. It's easy. Log on to princeshotchicken.com. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
Gregory Dental Group in Lebanon is in a new location, 1746 West Main in Lebanon, across from Sports Village. Gregory Dental Group offers cosmetic procedures, dental implant services, and digital dentures. Premium dentures in just 2 appointments.
Hi, I'm Dr. Derek Gregory. In my office, you can count on compassionate staff who will truly listen to you, take the time to get to know you, and discuss your personal needs.
No insurance? No problem. Call about the discount plan. Gregory Dental Group, 444-0322.
This is Randy Salas with Cumberland University Baseball. The regular season is over, and the Phoenix now head to Bowling Green, Kentucky for the Mid-South Conference Tournament and postseason play. Join me and my partner Chris Slaughter, former Cumberland catcher, as we bring you all the action on these radio stations or on WANTFM.com or on GoCumberlandAthletics.com from Bowling Green Ballpark in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Mid-South Conference Tournament. Check GoCumberlandAthletics.com for game times and dates. See you then.
Welcome back to Coleman and Company. This is Barry Tatum sitting in for Coleman, who's on special assignment. During the commercial break, I overheard an advertisement. Cumberland played Lindsey Wilson in their last home series this past weekend. Lost 2, but won the last game of a doubleheader on Saturday. by a score of 22-2. And that was their final regular season game, senior day ceremony that was broadcast on WCOR. This Wednesday afternoon at 4:30, Cumberland Phoenix baseball team opens play in the Mid-South Conference Tournament, playing again Lindsey Wilson College Blue Raiders, and that's the team they just played this weekend. And they're playing up in Bowling Green, and it'll be a good time to tune in and listen to the Phoenix baseball team. We're talking with Beth Goodner, who's Assistant Commissioner for the Division of Children and Young Adults for the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. During the break, we were talking about daughter just got married, you've got a grandson, life is good.
Lots of special events recently. Our daughter just got married a couple weeks ago at Fiddler's Grove in the chapel.
Yeah.
So beautiful, beautiful setting, and great event, and welcoming a new son into the family. And then our grandson, our first grandson, our only grandson, had his first birthday this last week. We had a birthday party yesterday, so celebrating some fun events.
All right, that's awesome. One thing that's you educated me during the break, we were talking about that May, which is starting Wednesday, is Children's Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yes.
Did not know that. And you brought a flyer here that there's going to be a mental health fair this Saturday, May 4th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., located at 228 East Main Street in Lebanon. And there'll be several mental health organizations and resources available, the food trucks, hot dogs, giveaways, and many community partners will be present. And that's the official launch of the Wilson County Mental Health Committee. Now, one thing that you and I can both relate to on here, I believe, and when we were growing up, all young people have distractions, whatever it is, but we didn't have computers, we didn't have smartphones, we didn't have emails, we didn't have text, we didn't have social media. And now kids grow up in this environment and it's second nature to them. I've always heard that mental health is a component, both genetically, organically, I guess we would call it, but also environmentally. And what have you seen in your career as far as mental health concerns? Is there a relationship to just this inundation of information, this nonstop noise, I guess you would say, that's we live in, or do you have an opinion about that?
Well, great questions, Coleman. Not Coleman.
That's all right.
Tatum.
I'm starting to look like it.
I think you have to go back to the facts, and certainly there are some, a component of mental illness can be genetic. And there's also components of mental illness that certainly can be aggravated, exaggerated, brought on by the environmental, situations. As it relates to children, there is a statement or a acronym called ACEs.
Adverse Childhood Experiences.
Yes. And I think, when you look at that, definition, I think that children, on the most part, are incredibly resilient, and that's such a blessing. But when they have a number of adverse child events and they don't have the corresponding uplifting components, that's where there can be a long-term impact. And, that could be issues with the parents or the guardians with different mental health issues themselves, or the parents struggling with addiction and alcohol issues. With COVID, so many families were just grappling with how to deal with this thing. Mm-hmm. And the impact, isolation from that, the impact from just the uncertainty that families were facing, both with what was going on with the world, what was going on with their jobs, financial security. So you add all those things together, and then you throw in the constant stimulation that comes from internet, cell phones, social media, that type of thing, it's certainly an impact.
Well, as far as being proactive, what are some things parents can look for? What are some things that parents can do, proven techniques to recognize problems before they do morph
Absolutely.
into something more serious?
So here's where I really want to advocate that mental health is health. And I always compare it to physical health. And when someone has an accident and they break their arm, and sometimes it's very evident, you know, Rod was a football official, and there were times that there was a break on the field, and it was very obvious. And, you know, if someone walked around with a broken arm,
you'd do something about it.
Or if you didn't do something, people would go, why are you not doing something? Go find your resources and take care of this. The same thing's true with our mental health, you know, with our spirit. And I think that education is power. It is power. And, you know, just like we need to know what our blood pressure is, what our cholesterol is, we need to know what our numbers are. Okay? And part of that is arming ourselves with information. This mental health fair is a great opportunity. So I would urge parents, listen to your children. Give them time to talk. Be open to, you know, active listening, but also arm yourself with information.
Well, mental health, my career, see a lot of episodes where that's a huge factor in the cases that we're dealing with. But you mentioned liken it to a broken arm. We can see when a bone is displaced a lot of times. Cholesterol, blood pressure, there are diagnostic tools that can be done, blood testing and mechanical devices to check that. But isn't mental health a harder thing to identify because it does vary?
Not when you know what you're looking for.
Well, see, that goes back to the education. What do you need to look for?
You know, I would urge listeners to educate themselves about the differences between just normal, emotional, regular, you know, different phases. You
ups
know,
and downs.
We all have ups and downs. We all have events where we are sad, and it's appropriate to be sad. Or we have episodes where things happen and we become angry. You know, just normal emotions.
Right.
But where those emotions turn into impacting our functioning, that's when you need to look into something deeper. There are scales for depression. There's scales for anxiety. You know, there are different tools that our field has that can help point you in the direction of you might want to go get an evaluation, or you might want to go into talk therapy. The other thing I would really advocate for is my father was a mechanic, and he had this massive toolbox.
Right.
And he knew where everything was.
Yeah.
Mental health's the same way. You know, we all need a huge toolbox for different coping skills. And it might be talking to a friend. It might be taking a walk. It might, you know, there's a whole host of things that you can do that have nothing to do with the professional realm. They're just around coping skills. But then when you need to switch over into some more professional options, there's talk therapy. There's medication management if that's appropriate. There's different levels of care. So there's lots of options in the toolbox.
Well, it's part of your position now with the state is part of Governor Lee's initiative to address some of these mental health concerns as they impact young people. And we heard Representative Boyd talk about how Governor Lee is very passionate about education and wanting to do well by children. What is the function, role of the Department of Mental Health and your charged responsibility to develop this?
So within the Department of Mental Health, there's 3 divisions. There's the adult division, there's a substance abuse division, and now the newly division for the children and young adults, and that's mine.
Okay.
And within this division, I have 5 main offices. One is infant and early childhood. One is juvenile justice reform. One is what we call SOCAT, it's System of Care across Tennessee. And then healthy transitions. And I know, switch to my notes. And then, of course, our school-based initiatives.
Right.
And we could go on for the next 2 hours about different things within those programs.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. But, part of what I have been doing these first few months that I've been here is just a listening tour across the state. Because I wanted to understand with all of our partners, how is service delivery for our grant programs being utilized across the state? And then just getting to know our partners and getting to understand what the clinical issues are across the state. But back to your question, one of the big initiatives are the school-based liaisons. And so just like it's the goal to have an SRO in every school, it is the goal to have a school-based liaison in every school.
When you say liaison, a mental health liaison to recognize the irregularity of behaviors or emotions?
But to also help do preventative. So preventative, early intervention, and then treatment as necessary.
And then when parents have questions, to be able to direct them knowledgeably to credible resources.
Correct. And the liaisons are partnering with, they are in the schools, they're part of the schools, and they are connecting and partnering with the school social workers and, different ones within the schools.
Yeah. Well, Beth, we're about out of time here, and I so much appreciate you being out here. I wish we could have 2 hours to talk about it. But something you touched on, and it answered, it's answer I already knew, but you've explained it so well, is mental health is a health issue. And figuring out that there's a need for some sort of treatment requires a higher level of training than being able to look and saying, well, my bone's not supposed to be sticking through my skin. So it's imperative that we educate ourselves and that we take some steps to try to help our young people. Good step for that. And again, thank you for bringing this out this Saturday, May 4th from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. at 228 East Main Street here in Lebanon is a mental health fair hosted by the Wilson County Mental Health Committee in conjunction with the Wilson County Health Council and the Wilson County Health Department. Going to have food, refreshments, giveaways, family activities, and several organizations to educate parents to and caregivers of children to hopefully enlighten them about ACEs.
And several of those organizations are part of our department. So we're just really glad to coordinate on that event and glad to be here.
All right. Beth, I hope you don't have to wait another 12, 13 years to be back. I'll say something to Coleman, but it's...
I may be in a retirement phase at that point.
Well, I tell you what, it'll be your profession's loss if that's the case, but your family's gain.
Thank you.
With that, thanks for tuning in to Coleman and Company, and I suspect Coleman will be back tomorrow for all of his groupies that are disappointed to hear me, and until then, have a magnificent Monday.